Trump's economic impact on gold and silver prices. Now, you might be the person who says, I don't even own gold. Maybe I own some silver. Maybe some of you just kind of pay attention to the story from afar and are contemplating entering the gold or silver markets. This video is just for you. And all that I ask you to do is help me feed Charlie by a like and a subscribe, and I'll continue with the story right to your inbox. If you've paid any attention to the financial markets, you notice that when Trump was elected, there was a huge surge in equity prices. This is the New York Stock Exchange, it's the NASDAQ, it's the Dow, you name it. All of these different markets splurged. They went off on a buying spree because there was a lot of presumptions that Trump was good for business. Now, the cold hard realities sinking in, and we've seen a lot of these equity prices come down to right about the same price when Trump got elected. But gold and silver is different. Over the past 6 months, gold is up over 13.5%, which is a significant number. And so I ask you a simple question. Do you own gold? Do you own silver? Do you own physical gold or silver? And maybe equally as important, if so, what is your entrance strategy of buying these products? And finally, what is your exit strategy? Just like anything, any kind of an investment, you need an entry strategy and an exit strategy. Just holding a bag of gold coins under your mattress might not be what you really wanted to have happen, because sometimes we don't know. Now what do? Let me share a story. About 15 years ago, I refinanced my house. I had about 100 silver coins, so there was 100 ounces in silver that I was able to sell. I used those monies to refinance my house because I did the calculations and found that by refinancing my house to a 15-year mortgage and putting an X amount of dollars down, I was going to wind up saving like a ton of money. So I went ahead and put an advertisement out on Craigslist. I had somebody contact me and say, hey, I would like to buy your silver coins. I went to a very public place, brought all these coins in, and the fellow handed me all kinds of cash. Now, the fact was, I was selling my coins at $27 per ounce. That was to a private buyer. But goodness sakes, if you're selling, say, 10 ounces of gold to a private buyer, you're talking right now like $30,000 in cash. Heck, if you have 100 ounces of gold, is it really a transaction that can be done in person? Are there better ways to do this? And maybe equally as important, is Trump going to continue influencing the economy, continually drive up the price of gold and maybe even silver too? Well, we're going to continue to follow this story with a couple of different things that might be impacting continued rise in gold and silver prices. So it's a super fascinating concept. Now that it appears the Ukraine and Russian war is drawing to an end, the first primary story we had was that the United States wanted a rare earth deal with Ukraine, that we were going to set up mining over there, and that was going to be part of the security guarantee the United States would be able to offer the Ukraine. But now that we're getting closer to signing the dotted line, and Ukraine is actually negotiating in good faith what their vision of the end of the war looks like, you'll note that U.S. defense contractors are in there making connections with the Ukrainian military. They are learning a ton about the drone warfare that took place in Ukraine's gallant defense of their territory against the Russian onslaught. We know that Ukraine was outnumbered when it came to military forces. We know that Ukraine was outnumbered when it came to actual people in the field. But the Ukrainians, forgive me, were super sophisticated in how they used drone warfare as added leverage. If you think about David and Goliath in the Bible, you could say that though drones really did make a significant impact, and it allowed a small country like the Ukraine to stand up to the Russians for like well over 2 years now. And with that, US defense contractors are super curious about what's going on with these drones. What did they learn? What tactics did they learn? And what can be improved? And what technologies can be brought over to the United States so we can incorporate them into our military? And equally as important, could be for sale to other allies to help fight the war of the future. Super cool story, most definitely affecting our market prices. What's the next story? Another interesting story that's coming out is one about the Ford F-150. Like, seriously, is there anything more American than a US made pickup truck? Well, as fate would have it, it turns out that the tariffs are really going to have a super big impact on the Ford Motor Company, and specifically the F 150. Something that I always took for granted is US made, built Ford tough. I'm finding out more and more that, well, there's a lot of those parts that are made outside of the United States. And some of the products they're using to make those Fords, the aluminum, some of the steel parts, well, they come from somewhere else as well. So you see that Ford is really being put in a bind. And as a result, the domino effect is it's also going to have an impact on people that drive F 150s. Now, let's face it, the average millionaire in America drives a pickup truck. It's a crazy statistic. But I would venture to say that a lot of those pickup trucks are drawn by people who are driven by people who actually have some kind of a construction type business. So when we follow how all these dominoes are falling, we're seeing the tariffs are affecting Ford, but Ford is now affecting commercial contractors. And commercial contractors, let's face it, are going to be the next thing. They're going to be affecting us and our prices. So it's another interesting story about how the Trump economy is affecting commodity prices, gold, and silver. Let's continue with our next story. The old saying is that everybody is Irish on St. Patrick's Day. I love St. Patrick's Day in part because it's a fun celebration. It's the opening up of spring in so many different places, and it's a silly holiday where people run around in green, play bagpipes, drink green beer, and so we celebrate our Irishness. Did you know that over 25% of the United States has some way, shape, or form Irish ancestry in their blood? Of all the different ethnic groups that you find most commonly throughout the United States. Maybe that's part of the reason why everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day. But on a different note, the Irish Prime Minister is coming to the United States, and he is really pleading for President Trump to take it easy on Ireland. Ireland, of all countries, has really benefited from corporations reincorporating to an outside country. Eaton Corp in the Cleveland area is one of those companies that has done this. But there's been a lot of others that have gone there for tax breaks. Now, the Irish Prime Minister is over here talking business and saying that they are going to have dare we say, a huge impact on their company, their country. Ireland has benefited tremendously, and now they have a lot to lose. Let's take a look at the chart here. You'll notice that the top countries the United States trades with, China, Mexico, Vietnam, and number 4 on that list is Ireland. So Ireland really does stand a lot to lose. And so not only are we celebrating our Irishness over the next week or so, but we're also taking a close look at how does U.S. policies, Trump's economic policies, affect commodities? How does it affect the markets? How does it affect gold and silver? And geez, what other things are influenced by that trickle-down effect? Let's check out the next story. DOGE is continuing their efforts by downsizing government. They call it right-sizing. A lot of people say just outright downsizing. What's happening in this particular case? Well, we see 1,600 jobs have just been cut from the U.S. Department of Education. It was a department in Washington, D.C., but the Trump administration has sights on downsizing it until non-existence. So the first move is laying off 1,600 employees at the Department of Education. The total number of people working at the Department of Education is about 4,500. But let's check this out for a minute. The U.S. Department of Education has offices all over the United States. And we can also say that now that these employees are being downsized, rift, taking early retirement, it's now going to open up commercial real estate, places that the United States government rented for their employees to go to work. This is happening in every single department. And I bring out this point to you because the federal government has spent a lot of money over the years, and there's a lot of people who've benefited from this money. Not just the employees, folks, but think about all the commercial real estate that has been used on a continual basis. Now these landowners don't have anybody paying rent, and we know that commercial real estate got clobbered during COVID. So we can make a pretty strong case that these real estate is going to be left open. And if we're talking about trickle down economics again, we're saying that this is going to affect everything from real estate prices to commodities prices to gold and silver prices. So we'll continue to follow this story. Have you ever heard of the Pareto principle, also known as the 80-20 rule? The idea is that 20% of your efforts on a daily basis make up for 80% of your results. And so, what are the little things that you do every single day that are driving your success? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it a good night's sleep? Is it making sure you're informed to make educated decisions throughout the course of the day? Is it a thinking process? Is it your prayer life? I want to remind you that oftentimes we get caught up in this world of information overload. I'm trying to help people pay attention to the stories that matter. I'm trying to help people think things through. And most of all, I want people to show up a little bit better every single day in life, because that's kind of what we're on about.